Hi, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining today's event. We have a poll going right now. We'd love to get a sense of who we have in the audience joining us. So you'll see that come up in the center of your screen. So you can take a second, let us know if you're a parent or teacher joining. But we're excited to have you all here for today's National Solar Tour event, Students Lead the Charge for Solar. Generation 180 is co-hosting the National Solar Tour in partnership with Solar United Neighbors and American Solar Energy Society. The largest grassroots renewable energy event in the nation is in its 25th year, and of course this year it's virtual. In years past, you would have joined an open house or local tour in your community, but this year you're able to participate in as many as you want. I encourage you to check out the virtual open houses online and explore the map to learn about homes, businesses, government buildings, nonprofits, and schools that have gone solar. I'm lucky to be joined tonight by several fantastic speakers. We have student activists with us from Tacoma, Washington, leaders from SolaRISE Portland in Maine, and Lisa Hoyos, co-founder and director of Sierra Club's Climate Parents. The speakers will introduce themselves in a few moments. Before we get started, I wanted to quickly tell you all about who we are. Generation 180 is a national nonprofit based out of Charlottesville, Virginia, working to inspire and equip individuals to take action on clean energy. My name is Jamie Wirtz, and I'm a program associate with Generation 180. I'm excited to be hosting today's event. I recently graduated from the University of Virginia, where I spearheaded the divestment movement at my university. Getting school administrators to take you seriously is a challenging feat, and that's why I'm so excited to hear from our student activists today, who were not only brave enough to speak to their administrators, but were successful in their endeavor to get their schools to go solar. At Generation 180, there are three major areas of our work. We're working to flip the energy script, which means moving from a narrative focused on climate gloom and doom to a story focused on where we need to go, a world powered by 100% clean energy. Our story says we can do this, and we all have a role to play. Our two major national campaigns focus on solutions that address the two largest sources of carbon dioxide emissions: electricity generation and transportation. Our Electrify Your Ride campaign works to make EVs more accessible. Gen 180 is also hosting Electrify Your Ride Week this week with free virtual events now up through Saturday. Please go to our website at generation180.org to find the schedule. We're also leading a solar schools movement nationwide that will reduce energy costs, enhance student learning, and foster healthier communities for all. The Solar for All Schools campaign leverages the integral role K-12 schools can play in reaching students, parents, neighbors, and local decision makers to encourage clean energy action throughout the community. The National Solar Tour has put together a week of events related to solar energy with a different theme each day. Gen 180 has organized Solar for Schools Day this Thursday, since it's the first day of October and kicks off National Energy Awareness Month. If you missed any of the earlier events today, recordings will be available on the Generation 180 YouTube page early next week. Before we dive in today, we wanted to know a bit about you. So we posted a poll question while we were waiting for you to begin, and now we're going to share those results. Exciting to see we're joined by some teachers, students, parents, and many solar advocates and supporters. A few housekeeping items before we begin. Because of the large number of people joining us, all event attendees will remain on mute throughout the event. Please use the Q&A, not the chat, to submit your questions to our panelists. We'll get to as many as we can at the end of the event. And due to the large number of panelists, we recommend that you switch from gallery view to speaker view to have the best experience. Now, without further ado, let's hear from our speakers. Why don't our student leaders from What's Up in Tacoma, Washington, kick us off and introduce yourselves? Oh, it looks like our panelists can't unmute themselves, and that's why we can't hear them chiming in. Let's see.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I'm Sammy Firkins. I'm 15 and I'm currently a sophomore at Tacoma School of the Arts in Washington.
I'm Annie's son, and I'm a sophomore at Stadium High School, also in Tacoma, Washington.
Okay, hi, sorry. I'm Gwen Newport. I'm 15. I'm also a sophomore at Stadium High School in Tacoma, Washington.
And our activist from SolaRISE Portland.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lucia Durrani. I am a graduate of Cascaway High School and a current freshman at Colorado College.
Hi, I'm Siri. I'm also a graduate of Cascaway High School in Portland and a current freshman at Brown University.
Great. So what's up? Why don't you kick us off and tell us a little bit more about your project, how you all got started?
Yes, so we are the What's Up Solar team, and our goal is to put a 277 panel solar array on Jason Lee Middle School in Tacoma, Washington. The project began in February of 2019 when we were invited to the Governor's STEM Alliance meeting to talk about sustainability. From there, we had the idea of adding a solar array to our middle school, Jason Lee. Then we took our idea to the school board. They were very supportive, but said they didn't have any extra funding to spend on the project. So it was up to us to fundraise the total project cost, which was about $198,000. So far, we have raised $112,000 in grants and community donations. The array will save us approximately $10,000 to $14,000 per year. It will also serve as a live-in laboratory for students and community members. Our project will also be the first Tacoma Public Schools solar installation. Our project is super easy to replicate on other schools, so hopefully it will be the first of many schools in our district to switch to solar.
Yeah, it all started in February 2019 when our former science teacher, Kathy Hall, invited us to do it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that introduction. And now I'll toss it over to our friends in Portland, Maine.
Yeah, so SolaRISE was originally a idea formed in a green team meeting at Cascaway High School, and that sort of spiraled into a district-wide idea to put solar panels on 6 schools in Portland. And our goal was really to have the solar energy and to offset our carbon emissions, but also to have a learning opportunity for students to be able to see what the district is doing for their education and for their future. And so as time went on, we ended up having partnering with the city to work on an off-site solar farm, which will offset 80 to 90% of the city's energy. And that's going to be from a solar farm that's actually part of a consortium with several other large schools in the state, as well as several businesses. So that's us.
Yeah, and to add on to what Lucia was saying about the Solar Consortium project, so through a series of remote solar projects, it will generate 20,000 megawatt hours of electricity, and it will save the school district $700,000 annually. And at this point, we're at the stage where they've chosen a developer and they're working on locating sites. So we look forward to seeing that project move forward. However, another big part of our original goal was having a solar array on school roofs in our district so students could interact and learn from the array. So we are working on a demonstration array project at one of our elementary schools, which will be a 10-panel array that we're hoping to create a curriculum where all third grade students learn about solar energy and then go to this one elementary school and visit the array. And hopefully we'll have an informational kiosk with information about how solar works, and also a QR code that connects to a website that shows how much electricity the array is producing and what that translates into offsetting carbon dioxide emissions.
Well, I am really excited to hear more about your stories, but first I'd love to hand it over to Lisa. She's going to be moderating our panel today.
Hi, everyone. It is so good to be here together with you and these amazing student leaders. Sierra Club's Climate Parents Program has had the good fortune to get to partner over the last several years with Generation 180. So we're partners in trying to change the world for the better by making schools clean energy, thriving spaces. So our particular program, Climate Parents, we're parents, but as you'll hear in stories later, we're also students, teachers. We're seeking to move this school-based community to pass resolutions committing to 100% clean electricity by 2030, so solarizing, and also to get all fossil fuels out of schools by 2040 for heating and transport. And the reason that timeline is different is because it's a sort of easier lift to get the 100% clean electricity. So we're giving ourselves 10 years. And then for some of the pieces that involve replacing a lot of infrastructure like heaters with new electric heating, we have a longer time horizon. Next slide. So it would be great if in the chat, because we know that an event like this would tend to draw people who already have a sense of why clean energy in our schools is so important. But when you think about it for yourself, participants and folks watching this webinar, please put in the chat just for a few minutes, why are solar and clean energy schools important to you? And while we wait for some chats to show up, I will just flag this is one of our teams that won a campaign in Minnesota. And Jamie, I'm actually not seeing the chat. Can you see the chat? Oh, here we go. Amy, because there are so many schools, it's a great place to start getting clean energy going. You can also use that as a teaching tool for students, which was true as Siri shared the example of taking elementary school kids out to see the array. Any other comments from anyone? Thanks, Amy, for participating. Amanda says, engaging the next generation with hands-on clean energy technology, getting them interested in careers in the industry, a demand that will only grow in time. Absolutely. The sort of STEM opportunities and clean energy solutions, climate solutions space is huge. Maybe one more and then we'll move along. From Spike. Thanks for coming, Spike. We know Spike. These young people will have to live with the problems that older generations have left. So not to end on a sad note, but it's true that everyone, adults, companies, schools, institutions, government, we all have a role to play in solving this problem. And I have kids myself, a lot of us do, and we want to, it's just a parent and a human instinct to leave the world a better place for your children. So that means taking climate change and climate action really seriously. All right, so next slide, please. So this is meant to sort of capture some of the ideas that were just shared in the chat. But one important reason to do this is that position school districts, our campaign in particular, but schools with Gen 180's Solar on Schools work, positions districts and school leaders. Schools are often the heart of our community. And it's where students from 4 years old to 18-year-olds spend most of their waking hours, Monday through Friday. And so when districts are positioned as leaders, it has ripple effects on the whole community. as was shared earlier, saves money that can be reinvested into underserved students in classrooms. Energy efficiency improvements, oftentimes improving our HVAC systems, heating, ventilation, and cooling, and also our lighting, and replacing lighting and making it more both energy efficient, but just better lighting. That actually, according to Harvard, helps with student performance. It's been demonstrated. And now with COVID-19, the air filtration, just all our indoor air systems become even more important. And so making sure they're energy efficient and help us reach our clean energy goals is really important. Enhances community resilience during power outages, climate disasters. I happen to live in California, and we've had a lot of smoke from the wildfires, and that means rolling blackouts. So if these things happen while students are in schools, if we have solar coupled with battery storage on our schools, we can make our schools resiliency hubs for students in school when there's outages, but for the broader community. More than half of community shelters, evacuation shelters, are housed on school properties. Opportunity to build and expand equity by prioritizing the needs of highest school districts first in terms of where we invest and how we invest. And the STEM equity question that was already raised, who has access to STEM, and how can we lift that up and make it better and make it more focused on the careers that in the clean energy space. And there's also a lot of nexus, and we found this in passing our resolutions. More and more people are like, yeah, let's clean let's clean up and make clean energy infrastructure for our schools, the lights, the solar panels, etc. But let's also make sure we have better climate curriculum, learning opportunities in the classroom. So these kinds of campaigns tend to go hand in glove. And finally, supporting clean energy union jobs and clean energy jobs in general that give people career ladders to become actual careers in clean tech. Next slide. So it's actually the next slide. I think we went backwards on the slides instead of forward. So before we now are gonna go into the student questions, which are super exciting, we're gonna just flag that both Generation 180 and Climate Parents have resources that are available, and they're really designed for students, parents, and teachers to run your own campaigns, like our 100% clean electricity and energy campaign, as well as the different kinds of campaigns to get solar on your schools where you live. And so this is our toolkit, and there's an image of it there, our fact sheet. Our campaign is called 100% Clean Energy School Districts, but the school district and school work also goes hand in glove. And at the end, when Jamie closes this out, she'll also share some of Generation 180's materials. And just by way of background, this toolkit and Gen 180's toolkit, we wrote them together and we tweaked them. So ours focuses on districts and theirs focuses on solar on schools predominantly, but there's a lot of the same content. So you can't go wrong no matter which website you go to. Next slide. This is just to illustrate that the toolkit has like a how to do every single step of the campaign, from building your core team to doing the research you need to do to thinking about finance. And so really it's intended, both toolkits, ours and Gen 180's, to be an A to Z guide about how to do this where you live. Next slide. And this is just like on a happy note before we go into hearing the student stories and student experiences. We had the opportunity as Climate Parents to work very closely with a local campaign on the ground in LA, and the leadership on that front was from the Climate Reality Project, which a lot of you have heard from. So we partnered, and in December of last year, we passed the largest 100% school district initiative in the country, because Los Angeles is the second largest school district. Like I said, gets us to 100% clean electricity by 2030 and off of fossil fuels altogether by 2040. And so what's kind of fun about this is you see on the right-hand side, the school board members in front, but as you can tell, it's a lot of students with their fists in the air and some teachers back there. And it was a really beautiful effort. And we want to replicate that all over the country. So now we're going to move back to the full view so you can see the panelists. And we are going to, we have 6 questions, and I'm going to start off for the first 3 questions. We're going to kick it off with SolaRISE Portland, to be followed with by WhatsApp. And then for the second 3 questions, we'll flip the order. So just to tee that up a little bit, the first question, starting with SolaRISE Portland, is what sparked your interest in solar and advocating for it on your school?
I think that for us, a big motivator was our campus. We have a lot of really big open fields, and we were really interested in looking at unique ways to solve ocean acidification. We were given the task to figure out a way to reduce our carbon footprint, and solar was pretty much the first thought that we had. And so I think that what sparked our interest was just how much it could be seen from our campus. And so we would be able to see it in action from our campus, and that was really appealing to us.
Thank you. Thanks, Lucia. Siri, were you going to add to that, or?
I can.
Okay, no, we can mix it up. If you go ahead, and then we'll move to WhatsApp.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree with Lucia. It was originally, we were focused on our school campus, but then as she mentioned in our introduction to our group, we started talking to other students in the community and realized there were actually environmental groups at many schools in the district who had been looking at similar projects. So I think what really motivated us to keep pushing was having this collective spirit and motivation. So we were able to become a united force and have more voice and power as a larger coalition of students across age levels and schools, and that was really powerful, and I think it provided a compelling narrative for the school district.
Fantastic. So this is one thing that I'm sharing with the student panelists is, since we're picking on you one by organization, the last person to speak, you can just say, done for our team, because I don't know if all three of you are going to speak or if one of you is going to speak, just so I can move things along. But that was excellent. Thank you for that. So WhatsApp, it's a great name. Watts like megawatts and kilowatts. WhatsApp, we're kicking it to you. Who's going to go first? And then if you're the last person for your team to speak, just let me know, and then we'll go back.
Great. So for us, it all started in 2019 when Mrs. Hall, Kathy Hall, asked us to give the presentation at the Governor's STEM Alliance meeting, and she explained how she needed us to create a presentation centered around sustainability. And the three of us were stoked about the opportunity and chose to focus the presentation on solar in schools because I think I speak for us all when we say we've always been passionate about environmental activism, and this was just the perfect opportunity to take action. And during our presentation, we talked about the specifics of our project and how it's incredibly beneficial, and we soon received enormous amounts of support from members of our community. Yeah, that's it for all of us.
Okay, and before you go back to that slide, Tish, if you would, that's Governor Inslee, for those of you who don't remember him, but he did run for president, so probably most folks on this call saw him in the primaries. And I just wanted to share a quote from Kathy Hall, who you referenced, because this shows the power of youth. She said, "I fully believe," this was in the case studies of Gen 180, "I fully believe it was the voices of these young ladies that made us get to where we are right now. If I had gone up there as a teacher, they would have said, yeah, right." Which isn't necessarily true, because teachers can make a big difference, but the student leadership and the student voice is very powerful. All right, we're going to go to our next question. We're going to start with SolaRISE Portland again. And this question is, share with us a major challenge that you faced. How did you overcome it? And what resources did you need to do that, to overcome it?
Yeah, so one of the biggest challenges we faced, we had a lot of support from the community and from our school district and the administrators at all our schools. However, it was hard to get beyond just expressing support and rather having tangible action. So one of the barriers we faced was the financial aspect of the project. I think schools are so burdened with other costs that the thought of investing in something like solar seems like something completely out of the range of possibilities. Schools have crumbling infrastructure and teachers who are underpaid, and there seem to be a lot higher priorities. So one of the greatest challenges was just convincing our school district that solar is not only an environmental investment, but a smart-worthy financial investment as well, and it can result in cost savings for the district. And one of the major game changers for the school board was a bill that passed, LD 1711, which allowed schools and organizations that use third-party agreements, like power purchase agreements, to benefit from net metering. And it also raised the project size limit for groups that can benefit from net metering to 5,000 kilowatts. And this dramatically changed the landscape for solar in the state, but especially for schools. I can use the example of a school district called Mount Desert Island, and they were originally, their project was originally expected to be, the savings from the project were originally going to be $293,000 over 25 years, and that transformed after the legislation passed into $1,465,000. So it was a pretty groundbreaking piece of legislation, and it really helped us convince our school board members that we could save money and we could apply that money towards the needs of the school district, helping teachers get supplies, helping underserved students. It's really not only about the environmental and educational benefits, but also about equity and helping school districts fill the gaps in funding through the cost savings of solar projects.
Thanks so much, Siri. And what Siri says is absolutely right. Like, both our toolkits walk through how you can finance it. And once you overcome that obstacle, the school boards tend to love this stuff because they do want to make an impact in the future and make the world better. It's sometimes they don't know how it's funded. They just haven't learned that yet. So students who do their homework, like this crew here, help bridge that gap. So now we're going to ask the same question to what's up and what's up. So again, a major challenge you faced, how did you overcome it, and what resources did you need to do it?
Yeah, a major challenge we faced was the coronavirus and an entire pandemic breaking out. The virus not only made it more difficult to go out and share the word about our project, but we had hoped to have the panels up and running by July of 2020, but the virus really halted our progress. Since our project was halted by the virus, some of our grants had a specific time when the panels should be up, so that was a bit of a challenge too. Our current challenge is fundraising the rest of the money needed for the project. We are confident, however, that we can overcome these challenges and get the panels on that roof. Yeah.
Glad to hear it. Anyone else from your team?
No, I think it was just me again.
All right. Thank you so much for that. So we're going to go back to SolaRISE Portland, Maine. And what has been the response of your school community to this project? And when we say your school community, we mean other students, parents, teachers, administrators, folks in the community.
Yeah, so we had the really special opportunity of not only working in our high school, but in the entire district. So we got to work with kids K through 12. And at the start of the project, we immediately went out to the community and talked to a bunch of elementary school kids, which was really special. And we got really strong feedback and really positive feedback from them and from all of the students. We were able to host a march, and we had roughly 500 students march with us to show support and to help raise awareness for the fundraising that we were doing to offset some of the costs. So from students and teachers, we had a lot of support. We also had a lot of support from our community. We raised $25,000, and most of that was just from people in the community, as well as some businesses. Administration within the schools was also very supportive. We had them do a lot of the heavy lifting with some of the more logistical parts of it. We had students really be thinking about what they wanted to see, and then the administration helped us figure out logistically how to handle that, which was very helpful. We had a lot of teachers who were allies for us, and Siri already touched on it, but at the district level, we had a little bit of difficulty persuading the district to get on board, but as soon as we had the legal and financial side to our advantage, we were able to really come around. So we had a lot of support. We were very lucky with that.
Great, thank you, Lucia. So should we go then to WhatsApp? I think we're going to switch it up now so that, well, no, WhatsApp for this question, and then we'll switch for the other question. So WhatsApp, who's speaking? Gwen, Annie, Sammy?
I'll be talking again. Our community and school have responded with nothing but endless support, and it's really fantastic. Immediately after our first presentation at the Governor's STEM Alliance meeting, we were met with an enormous outpour of support from people who wanted to help us make this a reality. From there, we went to the school board and pitched at them our idea, and they were totally on board, but didn't have any funding to give to us. So we soon started applying grants and getting the help necessary. We also partnered with the Tacoma Rainiers, who for the month of November donated $5 from every ball cap they sold to our project. Ultimately, this project wouldn't have been a reality without the support of our community, and we are infinitely grateful.
It's wonderful. Do Gwen or Annie have anything to add to that question?
Yeah, I think that a big part of our project wouldn't have been possible without our community either. They like really played a huge part of it.
It's wonderful. It's awesome. Okay, we're gonna then switch the order. So we're gonna start for the final three questions. Maybe we'll have time for even a few additional questions. And we're certainly gonna go to the folks on this webinar, and you'll be able to ask questions of the students as well. But the next question, starting now with what's up. I keep saying what's up. What's up, like megawatts. What's something you've gained or learned through this experience? Gwen or Annie or Sammy, just personally, as you reflect on the skills it took to make the strides you did, what's something you gained or you learned?
We definitely learned a lot of public speaking skills during this process. We've presented to the governor, obviously, and the school board, as well as Rotary clubs in our area and just community members at community events and that kind of thing. But yeah, that's definitely one of the skills is public speaking. It takes a lot of confidence, I guess, to stand up in front of a group of adults and try to convince them to do something that costs a lot of money. So yeah, that's a skill that we've learned.
Thank you, Gwen. Annie or Sammy?
I think something else that we've also learned is how much solar can like greatly benefit our schools and how much carbon emissions we are emitting just from using electricity. With solar, we can start with a much greener and cleaner world.
That's great. It's awesome. Sammy, anything or? Okay. So we're going to kick it back to SolaRISE Portland. What's something you gained or learned through this experience? And I want to note, Siri, that you're in college now. And so you had this experience as a senior. And is there anything you're taking with you as you start your college career? But it'd be great to hear from both of you, whoever wants to start.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'll piggyback off of what Gwen and Amy were saying. Public speaking was a huge part of it. And also spontaneous public speaking. We'd get a message like, oh, school board meeting tonight about this, be prepared. And then we'd have to text all our friends and get as many students there as possible. So much of it was just community organizing. And one thing we did is we organized a march and rally with over 300 students and teachers and just Portland community members who turned out in support, and figuring out permitting and how to even organize people and how to lead a march and have enough chants and make t-shirts, like all these different things that went into making an event that people wanted to come to, and something that was not just a protest, but a fun community event where everyone could learn something and feel like they're a part of the community. So community organizing was a big part. We had to design a digital organizing toolkit where we sent out materials to student leaders at all the different schools with hashtags to use and graphics and information about the march to try to get people ready for the event and help them organize the students at their respective schools. So this was definitely the largest scale community organizing project that I've ever been a part of. And so I'm definitely taking a lot of those skills with me. I think they're very applicable in the real world. And definitely, as I enter college, it sparked an interest in studying policy and public policy that I hadn't had before. Because through our experiencing, realizing how significant this one state law was to our project, it just proved how important government can be and how they can play a role in changing the possibilities for schools and businesses and organizations across our state. So it's definitely encouraged me to continue studying environmental studies and as well as public policy. And yeah.
Fantastic. Lucia, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, just Zuri covered a lot of it. I think that something that I've definitely taken from this experience is being able to roll with things and being very flexible with the outcome of what might happen. I think that this year entering college in a time of a virus is definitely very interesting, and I've kind of bounced all around the country and that's been entertaining, but I think that the idea of being able to roll with things and to have an idea and then go out of it with a completely different mantra but working really hard, it's been really helpful. So just trying to meet your goals any way possible and just talking to people about it.
That's great. Thank you, Lucia. Yeah, the importance of being resilient. And going back to what Sammy had said about the impact of COVID, in some of the campaigns that we ran for 100% clean energy school districts, people had to learn to engage differently with board members, because before COVID, you could go meet with a board member, have coffee with a board member, go to the board meeting and speak to her or him after the meeting or before the meeting, like the way you spoke with the governor in Tacoma. But I was pretty impressed by the resilient learning curve of our student leaders, for example, in our campaign in Salt Lake City, who just started saying, okay, we'll just call the board meeting members instead, or we'll prep for a board presentation via Zoom, or we'll do a video to present as in a presentation about this before the board. And so we'd work together on a video, and then it was just all virtual. So it can be done, si se puede, but it does take being creative and innovative and rolling with it, like you said. So the next question, and some of you touched on it, but it's a two-part question. So just feel free to answer it at whatever level you like. And we'll start again with WhatsApp. So what's next for either you or your school? Has this impacted plans for your own future in any way, and or the future that you see for your schools and your school district? So yeah, who's going to start?
Yeah, so for me personally, this experience has really sparked my interest in public speaking as well as public service. I love seeing progressive ideas like this being put into action, and I'm really interested in all of the steps it takes to get there. I also love explaining the things that I'm passionate about in hopes that it will interest someone else as well. Bottom line, I would definitely like to pursue a career where I'm creating a positive change as well as urging other people to do the same. But I'm only a sophomore, so I've got a little bit of time to figure it out.
And what about your school? Any thoughts there, like beyond what you've already accomplished? I know you're still trying to raise some money, but are you thinking about what other sort of clean energy innovations or any other sort of sustainability efforts might happen in the next 2 years while you're still there?
No, yeah. So we're really hopeful that as soon as we can get the panels on Jason Lee, and we can kind of use that as an example for the rest of the schools in the district and urge our board members to really try and invest in solar energy in our specific district because it's so rewarding. And our project specifically is super easy to replicate on other schools. So yeah, I guess that's another thing.
That's great. Annie and Sammy?
Yeah, so what Gwen said about how our next step is just to getting the panels on our school and then replicating it on to most of the schools, if not all of the schools in the district. We really think solar can make a change in our community. And I would say definitely for me, like what Gwen said too, I really enjoy speaking about things that I'm passionate about. So I think this has made me more interested in the world of communications. I really enjoyed delivering this targeted message of solar to as many groups of people as I can. And yeah, I hope to find a future in that.
Wonderful. Sammy?
I think just being able to work on this project and present it to people is always so fun for me, and it's really created many lasting opportunities and paved the way for a lot of what I want to do, I guess. I'm really passionate about pursuing a future in renewable energy and creating new ways to make healthier communities, which is really wonderful. And WhatsApp has just created a whole new perspective, and it's really great.
It's really inspirational. I wish I could see the people watching this panel, but I bet they are all smiling and feeling inspired. It's fun for me personally. I've gotten to work with a number of student teams around the country, and I watch them like I'm watching you, and I'm like, well, don't lose my number, because when you run for Congress, count me in to support you. It's really deeply inspirational, the level of leadership that has emerged in this work, and we're all excited to see where you all take it, especially in the fierce urgency of now of the climate crisis. This is our last question before we are going to kick it to Jamie to open it up for questions from the audience and the viewers with us today. Do you have any advice for students, parents, or community members who want to get solar on their schools, or who want to pass a resolution, which is a lot of the same organizing tactics to get your district to 100%? What advice do you have based on your experience so far? And we'll start with what's up.
Okay, so I think I definitely speak for our whole team when I say to just go for it. It may seem scary and unobtainable at first, but if you have the right people working with you and supporting you, it should all work out. I would say to start out with making sure you have a good team and having a general idea of your goal. Sammy and Gwen and I always have worked really well as a team, so that was a really good plus. I would say that if it's a large goal, don't be discouraged. Just take small steps and don't bombard yourselves with too much work at a time. If you do, that'll really drain you and add unnecessary stress. But if you do find yourself stressed or in need of anything, don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help. Help from your community is a key factor in solar projects. They're going to support you and help you succeed. We know that our community has definitely had our backs in this journey. But for them to help you, you have to go out and stand in your community. Make your voices be heard and your project be known. There's hardly any room for fear in this type of project, so you just have to believe in yourselves. And that may seem really difficult, but that's also one of the biggest steps to success. I would also recommend reaching out to companies to help you, whether that's with promoting your project or helping with funding. A lot of power companies near you may have grants available. And lastly, I just wanted to say that if you just go for it, there's going to be two possible outcomes. Either it goes your way, or from being totally blunt, it sometimes doesn't. But that's okay, because you didn't lose anything from trying. In fact, you would have gained knowledge from that experience. And at least you knew you tried to make a difference. It's a win-win situation, so why not take a chance and go make a change within the world?
Applause. Those are words to live by. Thank you so much. I think people who are undaunted are the ones that make change in the world. Anything from any, were you speaking for the team, or Gwen or Sammy? Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Nope, I think Annie just about covered it.
That was excellent. You know what? Because we have enough time that we could hear from each person, because it's the final question before we open it up. I want to lift up a second the part, do you have any advice for students, parents, or community members, which is to go for it? Anything about your parents or just adults that you learned about mobilizing your youth, right? So mobilizing people who might be a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, the governor of Washington State, much older than you. What do you have any, in addition to just learning to speak well, is there any other advice you have for young people about how to engage with older folks who are decision makers?
That's a really good question. I feel like it's kind of important to almost remind them, like urge them to leave a better future for us, and that investing in renewable energy and solar power is a way that they can do that. Yeah, that's a really good question.
A really good answer. Sammy, do you have any thoughts there too? Connecting up with older folks to get them to do stuff they need to do?
Sure. I think really just keeping everything clear, concise, and staying calm, and being able to come to a good conclusion with them, and just having a really strong, good idea is always a good way to get your message out there, I guess. It's always been pretty easy though, so.
That's great. And Annie, I know you were speaking kind of generally, but anything, just tricks of the trade for connecting up with older people to get them to move the needle in the right direction?
I think you just kind of have to make them listen. And if you need to speak multiple times about it, I think if you're really passionate about it, you should just do it.
Determination and follow up, and that's wonderful. All right, so let's go to SolaRISE Portland. Same question. Do you have any advice for students, parents, or community members who want to get solar on their schools?
Yeah, I think the biggest advice I have is to really form a strong group of student leaders who are interested in moving the project forward. I think what's hard with schools is there's so much turnover, so it's hard to lead campaigns that are long lasting and have a longer impact on the community. So I think if the important thing is to not just have students involved. So much of the support we received was from adults who stepped up and heard about our campaign and were interested in getting involved. We partnered with the Sierra Club Portland Climate Action Team, and they were huge mentors to us. They'd been through this process before with the city, so they had a really in-depth understanding of what it looks like for a city to invest in solar arrays and how that process works. So they played a crucial role in helping us understand that. We also partnered with someone from Campaign Earth, who was a major supporter of us, and she had a really solid understanding of fundraising, which we had never done before. I remember she came to our first meeting and she was like, "We're gonna raise $25,000," and we all had our mouths wide open like, what? I was thinking more like 200. So it was huge to have someone who had experience going to businesses and asking them to support, and so that was really huge. It was not at all just a student effort. It was really students in the lead, but with foundational support from adults. So don't be afraid to ask for help. And Also, what was really important for us is connecting with students at different schools and across different age levels, because every student has something unique and a powerful perspective to bring to the conversation. So definitely broaden your horizon and don't be afraid to reach out for help.
Fantastic. And I want to put a pin in what you said about reaching out to other schools. That was really important in Los Angeles. Very different demographics, huge, huge urban center. And it was really important to hear from students across race and class lines and schools in different geographies. And so, and the board really appreciated it. And sometimes board members represent different parts of the city. And so they like to hear from their own constituents. So thanks for that. Lucia, anything from you to close us out before we open up Q&A from the participants?
Yeah, I think I have two things. One of mine's more directed at students, and it would just be to do your research. I think that we had a lot of times where we would walk into board meetings or to meetings with people who were in charge of really, really important parts of the school district. And it was crucial that we knew what we were talking about, not just the ideas that we were talking about, but actually the nitty gritty, like what the grids were gonna look like, what the laws were, what was happening. And so just to really know what you're talking about, but then also to understand that it is a learning process and that not everything's going to go your way, and also that it's okay to have failed experiments and to continue from that and learn from that. A year before Siri and I did the SolaRISE march, we led a different march for a different organization that ended up not surviving past its first year, and just how much I learned from that, how much I learned about organizing a march, and just organization in general. So yeah, learning from your mistakes and really researching.
Thank you, Lucia. Before going to Jamie now to open it up, I do want to read one thing that's pretty hilarious in the comments from Sean, if I'm saying that right, or Sean McQueen, who was very inspired by all of you, who said, "I'm not crying, you're crying. Absolutely moving. I'm so excited to hear about all your good energy." And that feeling is really one that I've seen on the face of so many board members when students are leading these campaigns. So Jamie, over to you to facilitate Q&A from the participants.
Absolutely, yeah, I definitely echo what Sean is saying. It's really inspiring to hear all of you talk about your projects with such optimism and positivity, and I think that's very infectious, and I think a lot of our audience really resonated with what you shared. One quick plug before we open it up. We have some questions that have rolled in just as direct messages, so please feel free to send those over now. Is that our WhatsApp group, I'm sending this link here in our chat, was featured today on NPR, and that's a great example of what you all were discussing today, is that you roll with the punches and whatever comes your direction, whether it's an impromptu interview. I think not a lot of high schoolers have been featured on NPR, so that's an exciting story. But one question I wanted to kick it off with, and any of our speakers are free to jump in, but do you have any role models that you look up to, whether they're in the climate field or not? Someone that, whether you were doing your research or you're having a tough day, is there either a resource or person you always turn to?
Yeah, I'll go. A big influence for me, or a role model, I guess, is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's a representative in New York City, and just what she's doing with the Green New Deal and how persistent she is so inspiring. And yeah, I think I kind of speak for the whole group when I say that she's a very big role model for us.
Absolutely, me as well. Anybody else have someone they look up to, or it can be also a resource you turn to?
I think something that I learned from our situation was how inspired I was by the people who I was working with every day. I think that our teaching leaders, but also everyone in our group was just so inspiring, and able to sort of get me through the really hard times and then be there to celebrate. And it's really special to have that group. Siri talked about it a little bit, but having a group that you can look up to and be sort of like, oh my God, I want to be just like them. And just, even if it's your same age, but having that group of support, really special. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I think it's, Annie spoke to this earlier, but having support from your community and your peers, whether they're your age or not, is really instrumental in moving a project forward. We did get one other great comment in our questions. If you have any more, feel free to send them over, but that you all are doing excellent work and much better than our generation. And I think that speaks to how inspiring it is to hear from students and young leaders like yourself that are driven and moving things forward when you haven't even graduated from middle school or high school. But if we don't have any more questions, I think we'll just tee up our final few slides here. We can just share those again. So we can point out some resources that we have available. Yeah, I'll hand it over to Lisa.
I just have a couple more slides and then Jamie will close us out. And I do want to, I know Jamie will do this at the end, but really a big round of applause to all the students. It was phenomenal. So I think the moral of this story is the secret sauce of winning these kinds of campaigns, be they moving the entire school district to make a commitment to 100% clean energy, getting a solar project on a school as well, is engaging students, parents, and teachers, and especially the students. I didn't know that going in as someone who works at a group called Climate Parents, but this is a picture I shared a little bit earlier of our Salt Lake City team. It was all student led. I worked with them, as did the chapter director of the Utah chapter. But this is after they won, and they did a presentation on Zoom to the board, and they had a lot of meetings prior to that. But I think it was Annie and Gwen, like all of you touched on this in one way or the other, but in terms of running these campaigns from A to Z to be successful, what we found is having regular meetings is critical. Crafting the resolution or crafting the plan, learning the finance basics, connecting up with your facility staff, doing the work of persuading board members and community allies, building broad support through the community and across your school communities. And then this is our model, so it might be different from the solar on individual schools model, although sometimes you're putting solar on schools, but you're working like this with the district leadership. So having students, and also this is where teachers and parents come in, because students graduate and parents and teachers tend to stick around. Serving on a district task force. Our resolutions include that there be a task force that helps realize this vision over the next couple of decades of how we're going to get to 100% clean energy. So ensuring that their students, and in the case of, for example, Siri and Lucia, you graduated already. So just being mindful in your own leadership, this is just saying broadly, like who can you groom and lift up behind you so that you can continue to make progress in your sphere. So the Salt Lake City Task Force just started meeting, and the facility staff, this is kind of inspirational. Facility staff is like, we've always wanted to do this kind of change. We just never had a green light from the board or the district. And now they do. And a literal quote to me from one of the facilities professionals at the very top was, I feel like I have a new lease on life as it relates to sustainability in the district now. And that was because of student leadership. And you saw that on this call, this deep student leadership that changes how we do business in the world. Next slide. And so this is like to zoom out to the 30,000 foot level a bit. The groups you see on this page, Center for Green Schools, Generation 180, who organized all of this, Climate Parents, we, the three groups on the left and a whole bunch of others, serve on something called the K-12 Action Coalition. There's also an K-12 Action Commission. And the goal of this group is to take the kinds of changes that are happening on the ground that you've heard about for the last almost hour and institutionalize them, figure out how do we get more favorable state laws, like the net metering law that was referenced, so that when we're doing these kinds of investments in cleaning up the carbon footprint of schools, which is rather large, schools are oftentimes the largest energy consumers in their municipalities. How do we have the bottom-up support that you heard about this evening, but how also do we get leverage at the top so that there's policies driving these investments to invest in schools, to invest in a clean energy future for our young people? So I wanted to let you know that this is a new emerging space. This is a commission that was started by the Aspen Institute, and it's got a lot of high-level people on it, from the Urban League to the head of the big teachers unions. So the changes you heard about with the leadership of these students, there's other people in society and forces trying to move the same needle, and so there will be synergistic influences. And there's a lot of emphasis there on equity and racial justice, particularly in the moment we're in. And so I just wanted to let you know about it and urge you to look it up if you want. K-12 climate action at the Aspen Institute. Very last slide is going to go back to Jamie.
Awesome. Yeah, 2 more really great comments rolled in. This is the most hopeful I've felt about the future of our country for years, and that you all are so inspiring. It's really great to hear that feedback, because that's what we aim to do at Generation 180. We're inspiring people and we're equipping them to take action. So calling out some of our resources at climateparents.org, you can find their campaign toolkit. And at solarforallschools.org, you'll find our campaign toolkit, as well as our Solar School Census Report that just came out 2 weeks ago, and our Solar Schools Help Desk. So if you have any questions about running your own campaign, you can find articles or submit a question that we can find you an answer for to support you in your endeavor to get solar on your schools. Additionally, you can send questions directly to solarschools@generation180.org. Big special thank you to all of our panelists and Lisa for moderating, and to all of you for joining us this evening. It's been a pleasure. Have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you.